Welcome to Partnership and Practice, where we take a deep dive into our diagnostic and implementation process with one of our partner institutions. Today we have Amy Salazar, who is the Associate Vice Provost for Student Success at Sam Houston State University. How are you doing today, Amy?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica.
So Sam Houston State University recently went through our 5-month diagnostic and playbook process, where we were able to work with you and other campus leaders very closely to assess your current situation, to identify some of the key challenges on your campus, and then also to provide you with some recommendations and action steps that you could take to improve some of those challenges that we identified. One of my questions for you is, what motivated you to continue working with the NISS after the diagnostic and playbook process as your campus moved into implementing some of those recommendations?
We really enjoyed our time working in the diagnostic playbook. I think a lot of the things that came out of it wasn't brand new information we didn't know before, but we used NISS and our work with NISS as a campus catalyzing moment for us to kind of draw in people and say, sometimes it's great for Amy to say this is the best practice, but when the National Institute of Student Success says it's the best practice, it really provides that foundational buy-in that's really useful. And so we really used our transition from the diagnostic playbook into the implementation phase to kind of continue the momentum that we had already built up around our engagement with NISS, and then extend some of that engagement into the future with the buy-in that we already had.
Yeah. And how are you using some of that data and evidence that was gathered through the diagnostic and playbook process to inform the implementation of some of those targeted strategies on your campus right now?
So the one that we've done the most work on in the diagnostic playbook and also in the implementation phase is actually our academic advising redesign. The information that we found out through the diagnostic and the playbook process, as well as the modules that we were able to take part in, they were so useful for us because we were in a current state of looking for the best design for academic advising on our campus. And so by using some of those benchmarks and best practices that NISS provided, as well as the learning modules, we really were able to build a game plan for implementation and redesign. So we have established a council for academic advising now that we meet monthly to review the policies, practices, and data. That's really interesting and important for our advising community. And then we've also used it as a catalyzing force to create new positions in our academic advising unit. So we now will have 2 case managers that will be doing some more of that proactive and intrusive case management. And we also were able to look at our advising caseload and shift some of the timing, right? So it's not always about just more or less students going through advising. It's when are they going through advising? And right. Like I said, even though we know those best practices, it was just really great to have something that brought all of campus together in a really unique and interesting conversation. And everyone was bought into looking at those best practices and open to those conversations.
Yeah, thank you so much for that example. And I love that you are establishing that academic advising council and bringing the right people together to have those conversations. Obviously, collaboration and campus partner engagement is a critical part of a successful implementation of any new intervention or strategy. Can you talk a little bit more about how you are continuing to foster that collaboration across campus partners, even as you're working on other recommendations and in other areas?
Absolutely. So I think part of it is how you approach the work. And because student success work is really the entire campus's responsibility, but also their privilege, I look at it as everyone gets the opportunity to work and impact the lives of students. And I think when you approach the collaboration that way, you have easier buy-in because people realize, wow, I get to be a part of this really critical and important work. And so I think it's how you set the stage from the beginning is really important. But then moreover than that, I think it's the way that we have structured the implementation process is we have 4 priorities laid out in our implementation plan. And I have a team per priority that I meet with every month to keep us on track with our KPIs, make sure that we're kind of following along in the best practices. We also have done a lot of benchmarking with other institutions as well to make sure that what we're offering and planning on for students is really like the top tier of what could be done for their student success. And so I think by approaching it with a layer of humility of we're all coming into this process to learn, to grow together, to do the best thing we can for our campus, I think that's the right approach. And then I think in terms of actually making sure the engagement, setting up those monthly meetings with the stakeholders that are engaged in all of the processes, because we have everything from strategic use of financial aid, summer bridge programs, academic advising, and course redesign and academic analytics. So those are very different groups that we have working on campus. But I kind of remain as that central leader of those initiatives. And so I think that's one of the ways that you continue that engagement is being really intentional. Every time we meet, here's an agenda, here's our project priorities, here's how we're advancing the work. And I think we have a very limited amount of human capital resources. And so people are more willing to buy in when you ensure that the time that they're spending is going to have an impact.
Yeah, that's so important. And those are really great strategies. Thanks for sharing those. We also know, of course, that this work is not always easy and it is very challenging at times too, especially when you're launching something new. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you're facing in your own work and how you're handling those?
Yeah, I think our key challenge just at our institution would definitely be capacity and just human capital. We're so fortunate with, I always tell people we're really rich in passion and drive, and the people that work at Sam Houston, we know our mission, we know our students, and we're really committed to living a life of service to serve our student population. So the buy-in is there. However, we are still humans, and so that capacity is definitely limited. In terms of having enough advisors, or do we have the analytics and technical capacity to actually carry out some of the projects? We know the things that we want to move forward, and so sometimes it's just trying to align that priority in the larger landscape of all the other priorities that are happening at the institution. And so I think that's why I always tell people I have the best job in the world, is because that gets to be my job. How do we continue to advocate and push student success to be the front of the agenda, but also still keeping in mind that everyone does have a capacity. And so being able to see it at this level and say, okay, I recognize the limitation of this team, and maybe that's where we need to add additional resources or advocate for additional support at the institution.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I had the opportunity to come to Sam Houston State University and visit you and meet, your entire student success team and tour the campus and meet with students. And I can attest that there is certainly no shortage of passion, across your team and the people who you're working with. So that's just incredible. But capacity, of course, is a very real challenge that I think a lot of other institutions can also identify with. That being the case, as we wrap up, what is exciting you the most about your work with the NISS right now? What are you most excited about?
I think people in higher education, they recognize NISS, they recognize the work that has happened in the past that's built up to NISS. And so I think it's an exciting opportunity to kind of be on the forefront and the vanguard of what's happening in student success. I know that, we are part of a special group of institutions that are getting this opportunity to work directly with NISS. And I think that comes with a certain level of expectation, but also excitement, because we want to be those institutions that are most committed to our students, that are taking those active and evidence-based steps. And so I think just the opportunity to work with your organization and with the whole team at NISS just continues to excite and catalyze our work at SAM.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for Partnership in Practice. I really enjoyed our conversation and, of course, would love to have you back in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jessica.
Thanks, Amy.